Alright, YouTube, it's time for Occult Literature video number 89, also known as I'm going to start banning people who badmouth occultism on my channel. I've been posting it for years, and you should know better. I'm going to post what I want to post. On the Hindu Book of Astrology, which is a somewhat dubiously titled edition. Now, as always, link in the description to where you can purchase my edition of this work off of Amazon. Second link to my books blog. I will be adding ebook links soon. I want to get to like the 90th release, which it's already processing now. It's another shortish. This is 65 pages. The next one is 66, about the same length, let's face it. Not that different in terms of how much tree flesh was used to print your copy of this book. I will be adding ebook links. It'll take me a little bit of time, a couple days or something like that. I've noticed, obviously, though, ebook sales are already rising because the listings, more or less, are already active. This work is not actually a work of Hinduism. It's attributed to, what was it, Bhakti Seva or some other non-existent yogi from the late 1800s, the late 19th century time period. And what it actually is a standard Western work of zodiac lore. It's got the 12 signs, the 12 cusp periods. It talks about the different diseases you might be prone to under each sign, the different colors and gemstones that correspond to your sign, life advice. It then goes into a fairly lengthy expose in which it repeatedly admonishes the reader that they should study more about the occult for their own edification, spiritual purification, and so forth. Ultimately, a very good work, though. The fact that it's misattributed, I explain this quite frequently because a large proportion of all occult works, especially from older time periods, are misattributed to some force or another. It still happens today, like the Red Book of Appen. I wrote a strictly fictional version of this just to sort of show up the other people within the occult who were trying to claim that it had something to do with demonology. The Red Book of Appen was originally like a folk magic guy. It had like veterinary medicine. It would have been a little bit like the Petit Albert. Unfortunately, the original version is no longer extant as far as we can tell. It's very sad. Hopefully, sometime in some old library, somebody will find a copy of it that's still legible, or something like that. That's all I'll say. But the book, taken under that title and turned into a modern demonolatry tract with very low-quality images and numerous spelling errors, which really vexed me. This is why I decided to release my own somewhat more proper edition of this specific title, claims an origin with Vlad the Impaler, which doesn't make any sense. One look, linguistically speaking, one look at the word usage would tell you it wasn't translated from, like, Renaissance-era Wallachian language or something like that, so that's certainly involved. But often, we have works, for instance, from the Renaissance. They're attributed to Hermes, they're attributed falsely to Agrippa or Paracelsus, they're attributed especially to Solomon and Moses, above all. All of these different titles. But the attribution doesn't really mean much because it still contains lore. It was just, that was a marketing strategy. The lore itself is real, is actually occult. It's just attributed wrongfully to someone in order to increase its circulation. Well, ultimately, there's not a big problem with that. It's just sort of a ploy that they use to increase circulation. What that ended up doing in many cases is making these among the most popular titles. You look back, you think of the Sword of Moses, or the Enchiridion of Pope Leo III, which has nothing to do with Pope Leo. It made them quite popular. Now, if you look, a lot of these misattributed titles are some of my top sellers, honestly, other than maybe some. Again, the Grand Grimoire, the Black Pullet or something. Like the Notary Art of Solomon's #1 for the 3rd month running. That's for a reason. People are convinced it's part of an actual grimoire tradition. And it is. It's not that there's anything else specifically that's wrongful about the work. It's just misattributed to Solomon. So when I look at this, I see a standard Western zodiac, fairly in-depth, certainly of interest because of the period in which it was written. It also carries an essence of like the Theosophy, New Thought sort of overlap, the Atlantean sort of self-improvement stuff with it. It also had advertisements in it originally. These have been omitted in this version. So it's an interesting period piece. If you're interested in astrology, it's definitely a must-read because it carries the basic system. It goes into a little bit more depth about the cusps than some work. Some modern fans of astrology, they remove that entirely. They don't even believe in the concept. I've noticed there seems to be a constant raging debate about what dates specifically constitute which signs, where the cusps are, and so forth. It can get very confusing. It looks like there's some bitterness and hostility involved, honestly. But yeah, it's still an interesting work. This is the first strictly astrological work that I've released, but I've got, I think, a dozen more at this point that I'm going to edit over time. This is in addition to all of the oracle works. The oracle works are quite numerous. They're more numerous than I originally estimated. I thought there were 6 or 7 oracle variants. Turns out there are several dozen more major titles over time, most of which I've now obtained. So I'll be releasing those as well over time. I'm branching out into other types of occult literature because I'm trying to create the most cohesive catalog of occult literature available anywhere in the world. It's going to take many years of work, but I think it'll be worth it long term. Again, link in the description to the Hindu Book of Astrology on Amazon, my edition of this work. Second link to my books blog, much more material available, 8 different categories, links back to the occult literature series and the general occult series. That's about all. Peace out.